What we were gonna do, we were gonna kind of do this anyway, if Christy were going to join, was sort of do a little bit of a recap, really not in too much detail of the sessions because, a lot of the sessions did have repetitive aspects to them, especially when, I was demoing the site or we were showing the various links that you can get to the resources from. We want to share that, but a few other things about implementation. But one of the recap items is some of the questions that came up repeatedly during the sessions and also during the lunch session today. So here's I don't have slides for this, so I'm just going to kind of rattle them off at the top. And please, though, in the chat, in the Q&A, put in any topics or things you should address. And also, this could be an opportunity for other folks to chime in as well. I know, like in our very first session, or maybe it was our second session, Kerry, for example, shared a lot about the work she'd done, and so on. And if that material is good to share, or not even material, sorry to put any pressure on this out of the blue, she's probably wondering what I'm talking about, but if there is anything you think we should know about or share, please feel free to share it in the chat, or we could bring you in and speak as a panelist. Anybody who wants to share, we can do that. But here's sort of what we were going to do. We were going to go into a little bit about the peer review process that was undertaken on these books. We'll be quick on that, but we can definitely go into more depth. Sometimes that brings up more questions. And then get into the implementation side. And since we don't have really experts in the AACN and mapping of these resources and so on, to speak with us, I was going to go implementation. We were going to go implementation in a different direction and to show how folks integrate resources like these and show into environments like online, LMS environments and so on, just so you know what the opportunities and possibilities are. And then, any questions that come up as a result of that. And if, that only takes us a little bit and we end early, that's fine. If discussion takes us into different directions, that's great too. So just to kind of start things off, as always, the sessions are recorded. We will share the recording after. I think you're seeing that in the chat. We will, you can, if you need captions, if you like to use them, you can go ahead and click the show captions or captions button, depending on your Zoom version. And if you don't see that, check the more link. It should be on the right-hand side. Again, addressing one of the topics that came up in the I think the lunch session, and we've got some questions about. We've gotten a few questions on the peer review process and the errata process. So I know this is about implementation, but this is a little bit about that. Maybe the peer review of more development, but also like an idea where we go from here. Peer review of our resources doesn't stop once they publish. It really does continue. But there's distinctions between formalized review and sort of suggestions. So with all that said, let me just bring up, sorry, bear with me one second while I bring up a slide deck. I showed this briefly yesterday because I felt it was somewhat repetitive. So let me just share it. Okay. Essentially, when we develop these books, and I think it came through with Jessica at the end of her session. I hope you can see that. It's a really detailed process, and I think the evidence that the authors are talking, especially Jessica at the last session, just fresh in my head, talking about the outcome, talking about what she loves about the book, what she sees in the book. That all comes out of what was put into the book, but she's showing the final or near final product. So all the steps that go into it aren't as clear. But so we have this general development process that kind of aligns to the three stages of the one project that Carrie was sharing yesterday, the discovery, the planning, and the implementation. And the discovery and planning stages are where we're working very closely with a wide range of faculty and other experts from around the disciplines. And we're doing focus groups and interviews, one-on-one interviews or small focus groups. We're attending conferences, we're doing surveying and then following up on that survey. It's not just one survey, it's layers and piping and campaigns almost of them that are going into understanding what needs are and then getting into that, those core advisors. I mentioned, if you heard at the end of the session with Denise Neal this morning, Denise and Cynthia, that Denise, really gave us a really deep perspective on a lot of aspects of nursing. But I think because it would happen to be just sort of, I don't mean to speak for her, but very sort of front and center for her at the time was, staffing, faculty experience differences, changes, and even in preparation for this summit, we didn't do this session, but we had a lot of requests for industry to education transitions and retention. We didn't do it wasn't really aligned with maybe the OER aspects and the actual textbook aspects of this summit, but we know how important that an issue is. And so many of you, we're talking about education and teaching and textbooks and course resources and AACN essentials. And of course, you're all dealing with that, but then you're also dealing with, your colleagues' experience, new teachers in your departments, sort of helping them or managing them, and retaining them, and so on. So, sorry, this is a little afield from textbook development, but what we're doing here in this preparation process is hearing about all the issues that faculty and administrators are thinking about and thinking about how we can support them. You don't really support faculty retirement and retention issues and industry transitions in a textbook for students, but maybe you do in the ancillaries. Maybe we do in the ancillaries. Maybe we do in the resources that we provide alongside them and the community we try to build around the resources. Because if the goal that Michelle started out yesterday with was addressing the workforce reductions and needs in nursing in Texas and the country, and better supporting nursing educators and students, well, we have to consider all those things that are all those pressure points that are being put on them. So we think about all of that, and we think about where we can take them, and that does lead us into the development of an actual textbook, though, on a book by book basis. So the preparation and planning is really two parts. One is all that outreach, and then the second thing is from a number of faculty that sort of just exhibit that they really want to be involved, that they have a deep focus or they have the time and availability and expertise to take part in a deeper way. That's where we get into that planning period. And one of the first questions we got in yesterday's early morning session was, how are the authors selected? And they're selected through this process, through applying themselves and being commented, and working with, submitting samples, and looking at resumes and having their colleagues also like weigh in and sort of collaborate on who should do what on which book. And of course, you have to be focused on that course. Jessica just spoke to us. She's obviously extremely focused on that population community health course. And when we're talking about psych mental health or med surg or whatever, those faculty are involved in those courses. From there, we get into that feature and component definition. We think about what needs to be in these courses, what needs to be in these books, what topics need to be covered, and how we need to cover them. And then I won't go, so I'm talking a lot. I'll just talk about where that goes from there. We go from that point, from table of contents to outline, and then we get into this cycle of review and revision. And I start with the outline. The outline is written, the outline is reviewed and revised by faculty at different levels. And we really seek to provide diversity in our reviewers in terms of everything: geography, race, gender, ethnicity, any other identifying aspects that we can ask about. We don't want to overstep anything. Geography is a big deal. Type of school, community college, four-year school, which part of the country, different states. We're trying to get all that feedback in so that we can get the widest possible perspective on the resources and how they should be taught. Go from the outline and its review and its revision to the first draft. And then that cycle just happens, rinse, repeat, if it's okay, over and over again. And some chapters go through 2 rounds of review, some go through 5 rounds of review. We keep reviewing and revising until it's as correct and accurate as it can be. We're never going to please everyone, right? There's never going to be all the way through to 100%. everybody agreeing on something, and uh, um, we don't want to overstate that any one textbook could meet all the needs of different the different populations and different types of schools, and so on. So we're providing the best that we can, and then you have the opportunity to adapt from there, and build in other conversations, and maybe formalize revisions. At the start of the conversation yesterday, Alita was here, and she's from Canada, and she was talking about adapting, assuming she said international, but probably for Canada, and thinking about that type of adaptation, and that can happen too, and it can happen across different types of schools and courses and needs. So that's what's available, and then and I do want to say. Uh, there's as thank you, Michelle, for adding that in the chat a little bit up, that these conversations, at OpenStax ourselves, and I'm not trying to speak for the TTC, but at OpenStax, we're really focused on that, faculty and student interaction, very, very, I don't want to say narrowly, but that's kind of our, I'll just say it, it's kind of our lane. Right, that's what we're working on when we're working on course materials. But other organizations like the TETCB are in bigger conversations, and are talking to across workforce and employment and administrators. And OpenStax is always glad to be involved in those too. But maybe that's not our lane as directly. So that's how we all work together and can complement each other. And I think that can happen in Texas, and then of course with state organizations in your states and institutions and so on outside of Texas. So just again to say that this process goes on and on, where we're trying to get the resources into the best shape possible so that they're ready to be released, and then definitely can be revised. So that's the formalized review program and how it gets in. And then I'll kind of speak, because we've mentioned it a few times. I'm going to go to one of our existing books. So I think there's two places where other sorts of discussions can take place. One is a place where a real discussion can take place, which is in the nursing hub, where you can go and join. We've said this a few times. Hope you go and join. Right away. Join one of these hubs or one of these groups, so you can start the conversation or be a part of the conversation. And we'll start to foster this and start to populate these sites with resources and so on. So you can have discussions and so on, about ways you're adapting the textbook, sharing resources across courses and so on, breaking up and remapping the book and remixing it and so on. So that's a place you can do that. And if you have direct feedback on the textbooks, you can go to OpenStax, and this isn't activated for the nursing books yet because they're not published. But what you'll see here, I'm on the bio site, and the biology textbook, and you can see that on the screen here, there's this errata suggest a correction button. So I'm not logged in, but basically, I'd go to log in, I'd suggest a correction, and it would capture my information, the information around what the issue is, where it is in the textbook, why I think it's a concern, and then you'll go ahead and make it. And like I said on a couple of the sessions, we're very transparent about this. We put them all up here, and you can see what the issues are. That helps because you can see the status of changes. So we don't expect you to peruse the entire list of errata, but if you can see it, if something just changed, like the AACN released a new update, or the NCLEX, has a new update coming out, and you notice something is different, you could scroll through and see if anybody had submitted that, recently. But if you do submit something, if you have something to submit, go ahead and submit it. If it's a duplicate, or is a, semi-duplicate, we'll manage that. Every one of these pieces of feedback is reviewed by faculty teaching the courses, so that's important because they're subject matter experts. They know the topic, nursing, and the specific nursing subject, and also they know. I know every course is different, but they know the course, right? So they know. Does this belong in the typical course, or is this aligned with the way we're teaching the course? And we know that is itself fluid, right? Some courses need to change and stretch, and textbooks that serve courses need to change and stretch. But as I've said a few times, it's one thing to add a few sentences or a paragraph or a new image or something, it's another 3 chapters. So it really just depends on the scope. That's how we take that feedback. So this is not quite peer review in the formal sense, but of course it does have a very significant place in keeping textbooks updated. We will go ahead and make formalized updates to the textbooks, and that's where we'll also rely on the community. We do constant surveying and interviewing, even after the books are published, attending conferences and getting feedback at conferences like this that we put on jointly with the THCCB, but also we'll go out to nursing conferences and seek other guidance. And we hope that this is only the start of the conversation where you're all, sharing with us about ideas around it as well. Okay, so I will take a breath. So that's something on the peer review process. I wanted to mention a couple of things about implementation. Oh, thank you so much, Andy, and Andy's point is really, really good. So we don't continually update these books every minute. I mean, if there's an urgent issue, we absolutely update it right away. But if it's something that is, could take a little time, we do it on a cycle. We don't want to be disruptive either. We make efforts to do, we're also there's no guarantees, but we're not trying to force changes into new editions in the way that maybe some of our friends in the commercial publishing world are. So we'll take efforts to do things like make sure the numbers don't change in the chapter questions or something like that. We make a lot of effort there. In nursing, it's not this huge volume of questions like it is in math, but even in those types of courses, we take efforts to do that. So we're trying to do everything we can to make it easy to use the resources over a long period of time. And one of the ways we do that is by, it's a great question. When you make changes, how do you notify users? So basically every individual change is not notified to all users because it could be a lot of notifications. What we do is when we make, Andy mentioned that periodic time in the fall semester. So what we'll do is we'll issue errata release notes periodically throughout the year, sort of collecting all those changes, and that will essentially capture most of the changes. It will capture, probably 95% of the changes. That's when we'll make them, and we'll record those errata release notes. And if there's anything that's really critical, that's another thing. You can always. I know you're asking it, and we don't want to put the onus on you, as a user of the book. But if there is something you're interested in, hey, this did change. I don't know if I saw an errata on it. Are you addressing it? That could happen in nursing a lot, right? With standard changes, it happens in psych with the DSM. There's a DSM-5, and then there's subsequent revisions to the DSM-5, and those are the ones that actually, everything is complex, but sometimes those subsequent revisions are things we need to keep an eye on because not every author or psychologist is affected by them in the same way. They affect different parts of the course or different parts of the profession or the discipline. So you can always ask, and we'll tell you. We know the status of every single change we're making. We'll be glad to share that. But in terms of notifying the users formally, you'll see it in the errata release notes. So in terms of implementation, one of the things is how do I use this in my course in a practical way? And one of the ways could be through something like your in Canvas. Denise today showed D2L. You might use D2L. You might use Canvas. You might use Moodle, or you might use Blackboard or something else. You don't need to use any of these, but what we often provide. Let's hope I'm on the right one. Hold 1 sec. Sorry. Yeah. So make sure I'm in the right environment before I start building. Okay. Right. So you're gonna have to just bear with us here if it's okay, because we didn't expect to necessarily do this part. So you're gonna see anybody wants to learn about criminal liability, we're there for you. But basically, something we said was that these links can be added to your online course with no problem, and we will actually provide a course cartridge with all the links built in. But it's really just as easy as and I know I'm in Canvas now, but I've done this in all different platforms, and sometimes we do it on behalf of faculty, and there's some similarity to it. We can go ahead and say chapter one, and just go ahead and start building. Hopefully, as I'm doing this, it actually works. Oh yeah, okay. So and you can just start adding links, assignments, URLs, and so on. I'm gonna go grab. I don't want to have everybody watch me have to click around. I apologize. I just want to find the. Okay, I will. I'll bring back some tough memories for probably a lot of people on the call, and use organic chemistry just for the time being. But we're able to. Sorry, I'm clicking around here. Close some tabs. What I need to do. Okay. Right. Let's call this SN1 because I think that's what the page was about. And I can go ahead and add that item, and my students can get that. Just so you know, these links are permanent. So basically, if you go into one of our books, it will, in the case of the nursing book, it will say pharmacology or population health or whatever, but that link will be permanent. You're able to add that right in as a module, and then you have the freedom to you can assign it. You can assign that module to your students. You could set a due date for it and stuff like that, depending on the type of asset that you're creating, and so on. So if you just bear with us a second and just imagine that this international law section is nursing, international law of nursing. That's where these are built in, and you can show, hide, move around, and so on. And something that has come up a couple of times is, how do I customize? How do I remix? And I believe that question was issued from one faculty member to another when discussing about remixing and using the LMS. And this is where most of them actually work pretty similarly. To remix is really easy because in many cases, all I got to do is do something like that. If you saw, I just moved 14 instead of 13, or just hide 13, or unpublish it or something like that. I have all that control. And so the books will be available in this format. I know it seems pretty basic, but having all those links available in that way is a pathway to using it, and then also to remixing. Like we've said a couple of times, we provide it in all different formats, and we allow you to edit and republish as much as you'd like. But that's a lot of effort. Maybe you don't need, you don't have to get into a Word document if you just want to take out a chapter. You can just use the course cartridge and delete a chapter or hide a chapter. And maybe hiding is the best thing, or moving it down and say, hey, we're not covering these 4 chapters in our course, but if you want them, you can still get to them. We're going to focus on these 10 chapters, or however it works. So the books are available. We provide. I'll just show you real quick. When the books go live, what you'll see is, again, just using organic chemistry, you'll see as those course cartridges listed at the top of every instructor page. They're not there yet for the nursing books because the books aren't published, but you'll see those available, and then you can start that. And in terms of implementation, that's sort of the first thing that a lot of faculty do. The first thing that we recommend you do is actually put on your syllabus, but we know that sometimes your students get to your syllabus through your your LMS. So that's just one opportunity you have. Okay, so I'll stop on that. This is Canvas, but this works, right? This looks like Canvas, but this can work. This is Canvas, sorry. But in Blackboard, D2L, Moodle, it's a similar, not exactly the same, of course, but similar experience. It's interesting. We work with them all, and we're always transferring between them all. So we always have sort of an insight on where it's easiest. D2L, I have to say, has become quite easy to use. It's like the universal recipient. It takes a lot in and is able to process it pretty well. So any help you need on our help articles at OpenStax's, you will see, and these are the sorts of things we can also populate inside the one hub. But if you talk about just typing in Canvas here, so this is going to look like a lot, right? It is. I just typed in Canvas into the OpenStax's search, and I got all these articles that I've mentioned our fabulous customer support team, and they're fabulous because they're hyperly responsive. They're also fabulous because they write all these articles. They're very responsive, and they will work through these with you. But if you need any information, and it's after hours or the weekend, or you just wanted to have it on hand, you can do this. We'll tell you how to download the cartridge, how to what else do we do? Manually syncing scores, and so on. Some of these assets don't apply. We have, I'll talk about Assignable in a second, but there's a lot of opportunities to use OpenStax within these different LMSs, and we, just as an example, show Blackboard. So we're doing everything we can to show how to get to and how to use the resources, and these articles can be shared with your colleagues. And the final piece is, what typically happens is that OER librarians, OER advocates, instructional designers, teaching excellence folks, and even faculty will go ahead and take these articles or make their own or create videos. If you search, YouTube, integrating OpenStax, for example, what you'll see, or integrating OER, what you'll see is a lot of videos of really great contributors to the overall learning community, showing how to integrate OER into different course contexts and different learning environments. I did it very quickly and roughly here, but they're actually really good at it. So you can take some learnings from them. That's more resources we'll post to share some of that information. Okay, that was a lot from me, as typically is. Anybody has any questions, or anybody thinks we should share anything else or talk about other aspects of this, please let us know. I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second because I want to switch over to something else. Nothing in the chat. So, okay, I'm going to share one more time and show just one more thing, taking it sort of to the other aspect of implementation. Sorry, let's get this. Have to find. There we go. Okay, I will spare everybody. And let's move out of organic for just a minute and move to maybe a little more friendly course. Let's do college success. So our college success book is a really nice resource, another one that can be used across different courses. So sorry for the commercial, but it's definitely available to be used. You can, oh, actually, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to go to the instructor resources. So one thing that we also provide in terms of implementation is the book customization. We had some questions come on this during the summit, and then even outside of the summit through different channels. So I wanted to share this. So the books are released in the PDF format and the online format and print for students. Faculty have access. I mean, if students really wanted to, we give it to them too. But faculty have access to the Word documents. And I can go ahead and I'm not going to be able to show this. Just give me a second. I know you're not seeing anything. I'll reshare in a second. Let me see if I can share this Word document. So basically, what I just did was download the Word documents for the books, and I'm just going to share what it looks like, so you can see that. Perfect, yeah. So I downloaded, you saw me go ahead and do the download, and it's how to switch the share so it would share Word. Sorry, I wasn't sharing the desktop, but essentially what it did was it rendered that textbook section by section into a Word document. And certain books and certain sections and certain types of content go in a little easier than others. I happen to just have randomly opened a pretty easy one in terms of, oh, it's all text, this section. So, when we have math and graphics and things like that, it makes it a little harder. But it does all translate. The graphics are included, and you can go ahead if you wanted to and take this apart, edit it. What many faculty do is they'll go from here, not necessarily about editing, but repurposing. Like basically copying this into, say I had another document open and I was, wanted to paste it into a test bank, or as a question into a scenario, or a butterfly template, for the NCLEX or something like that. You can do that, and you'll have that ability with the OpenStax's nursing textbooks to go ahead and make that change as well. Let me give me a second, and I will see if we can close out of this and get to another. Something with a little more oomph to it. Maybe I should have picked a more complex book, but in any case, like I said, the images come over, and other assets, the end of chapter questions come over this way too. So you're able to grab those and put them into different learning environments, different contexts, different study tools and resources. And this is a starting place for a lot of people using the textbooks and those content, not necessarily for editing purposes, but for reuse and remixing purposes, especially across their different course environments. You can imagine, making a study guide out of this. We've seen tutors in schools take only the parts that they typically tutor on, and turn those, grab all the worked examples out of a math book, or grab all the co-requisite content or something out of a math book and repost it, so that their students can get to it more easily. So that's where, the Word documents offer that opportunity. Maybe you don't even want to do it in Word. Maybe you'd like to do it in PDF. You can do that if you have the right type of PDF editor, if you have the full editor and so on. Okay, so I'll stop sharing that, but that's available, and those, just to kind of share where we got that in the under the instructor resources, and that customization will be fully available once the book's published in their final format. That is a hard, so a lot of credit to our team, our technical team. That's hard to do. That's a lot of hard technology to develop, so that folks could have that adaptability. And then we do, just because we started off the conversation on the editing, on the errata and updating point, we'll go ahead and update those too. They're going to lag a little bit, as you can imagine, transferring from the online version to that Word version, and then doing all the quality assurance to make sure that it all lines up correctly. It takes a little time, takes time of human beings reading it all and so on, or skimming through. So it does take some time. So sometimes those lag on the updates and errata, but generally, as many of your faculty know, when you start to customize books of any type, commercial, open, whatever, you sort of lose a little bit of the connection with the latest version. So it's essentially, the analogy is kind of the same with ours. Once you start customizing, things get a little bit different. And just to point out one other thing, that and many of our other resources are organized by chapter. So no need to have to worry about the whole book. If you only want to change, 90% of the book is fine. You want to change one section, you can have that opportunity. Or if you only want to use one section and leave the other 90% somewhere else, you can do that too. Those Word documents, like we said, and as Amanda pointed in, I'm sorry. Sure I'm saying the right terms. As Andy pointed out, these are all published under that open license, so you can go ahead and remix and repost. And if you need to, we do have the print versions, but hey, I need to print this out for a small group of students or something. You have that opportunity as well. Yes, so that all those terms that we change, that's a really important thing. We know that to make all students feel like they belong, and as we were talking about yesterday, well, we weren't talking about it. We were hearing a great session on the NCLEX about using the terminology correctly, and teaching students the terminology they'll use on the NCLEX, for example. Just like Amanda was saying in the chat, if we haven't made that change yet, we're not making it fast enough. You have the opportunity to make it, right in the text, and just repost that chapter to your LMS or something like that. Okay, so I will take a break. Any other questions, comments, anything else anybody feels like we should dig into, kind of talking about these more technical items? We have one more sort of area to cover, again at the very end, but just wanted to, while we're here talking about this stuff, make sure we give anybody the opportunity to ask those more technical questions or usage questions. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have many, or any. So please just if any do come in, anybody has anything, if anybody's typing, please, go ahead and we'll take it. Um, so just want to say again, thank you all for joining for this session, for the previous sessions. Thank you to the entire OpenStax's team. This was really such a team effort. You see Lindsay's picture up there on the screen. She should be. I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but Lindsay coordinated this entire event, and yeah, it was really inspiring, and a lot of, as you can imagine, a lot of changes and things we have to think about, new considerations, differences between institutions about how we handle ECU credits, and changes of registration statuses, and the Zoom audience needing to be bigger and then smaller, and so on. So just thanks to you see a lot of people on all these. I appreciate. Thank you so much, Michelle, for shouting me out. But I got to say, you're seeing a lot of people on these sessions, every single session. And as you probably all can imagine, because you all work in various departments, we have Slack channel and comments going on our end all day long. And dozen people rolling with the punches, changing plans, seeing how we're going to handle this, adjusting to this and that, and so on. So I just thank everybody at OpenStax, um, and the THECB, Michelle, Carrie, Kyla, Gwen, and everybody there, and Commissioner Keller has been just so wonderful to work with, so supportive, so visionary, and really made this happen, and saw, just like Michelle said yesterday, and I'm paraphrasing incorrectly, but just sort of, this started out with a question. We started out with, and sort of, we're all in academia, we're all working towards things. We want our students to ask questions. We have to ask questions of ourselves, and that's really how it started. And the thing is, that's where it started. It's certainly not finished yet. We're kind of just getting started. The release of these books will launch as many OER, not just OpenStax, launches a whole ecosystem unto itself. Just, they had the biology book up. There's ecosystems and there's ecosystems within ecosystems, right? And every course has its own ecosystem, and then going out to a wider cluster of courses or type of program, or discipline itself, and then to the wider audience. And we really do, just suggest and recommend and welcome everyone to join with us, join with each other on these, and seek out others in your institutions who are using OER in different ways, across the curricula. It's used in math, it's used in science, it's used in social science, business, all sorts of tech. It's used by people who don't even call it OER. We're doing a computer science series now, and we explain some of the ways that we need to make some of the resources, and they say, "Oh, you mean just put it on GitHub and leave it open for everybody to get it?" Like, yes, that's what our computer scientist thinks about open. So there are some different aspects about it. It's really, really interesting. So please, go ahead to the nursing hub, the one hub. Register for an account so you can get the ancillaries, and get more information from OpenStax on the series, its publication, and then keep an eye out for those other resources that will come of it. You'll see, I guarantee it, because we see it in a whole bunch of OER, OpenStax and otherwise, entire YouTube channels dedicated to creating activities and interpreting and lectures and video lectures about a course based on a series of books, a school adapting all the art and creating H5P activities out of it, and posting it on eCampus Ontario, H5P Hub, or somewhere else. You'll see a ton of that. So, and the way to know about that is to get connected into these different platforms, the One Summit Hub, and other environments, so that you can share and see what's happening, and contribute yourselves. One other thing, next week, if you don't know, is Open Education Week, OE Week. And you'll hear more about that, especially I'm sure if you go on the One Hub. But there will be more presentations on this. So any of your colleagues that missed it, missed this, there is. Thank you so much, Carrie. That's a great event happening next week. So any of your colleagues couldn't meet this, there is some stuff going on next week, specifically on the one project on nursing. I believe that's the Wednesday event, Wednesday morning. So if you'd like to recommend any colleagues to learn more about it, we'll be sharing more there next week as well. So again, thank you all so much. Thanks for being on this journey. I know that we have some, I don't know, we're going to give some like special medal for folks who are on every session. I know there are a couple of you, so thank you so much, and for all the feedback, support, and guidance. And okay, so just to say, the recordings, you'll get some follow-up. You'll get some follow-up emails with evaluation, survey. We'd love your candid feedback about the sessions, about the resources, and everything else. That will also include, we'll share the videos if you want to see them again and share them with colleagues, please do. And other opportunities to engage. So we'll follow up with information there. Again, thank you so much. It's been a great couple of days. It's only the start, and we're really looking forward to seeing these books used and seeing all the ways you're using them. Thanks so much. Have a great evening.